Hey everybody, we are officially live. I'm extremely excited to have our workshop this evening. We are about to get started with our guest, Heather Wilde, but we're going to get started in 10 minutes. So until then, we'll just be chatting and just introducing ourselves to you, the audience, the students coming into the workshop. Um, I'm really excited for this evening. If you attended last night's workshop, I'm really glad that you're here again tonight. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Part of at least the program is that we bring in different guest speakers in every single workshop because it allows us to provide different perspectives from different people in different fields. Even though it's on similar topics, it allows a different essentially perspective and different eyesight from multiple people's angles. So tonight I'm really excited to have Heather Wilde, who I'll introduce as we get closer into the workshop. So Heather, while we are waiting for the 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time start time of the workshop, I would love just to ask you some speed questions, just to maybe random things that people may not know about you, or before we introduce you during the workshop, that would be cool for you to share with our audience. So maybe this summer, what were some things that you did?
This summer, one of the things that I did was I do a lot of public speaking. So I was in Europe, in Poland, and in Romania and Sweden for some conferences over there. And I was doing talks on mental health, actually, on how, as an entrepreneur, it can be very stressful, and how to manage that stress.
That's really cool. So did you travel around Europe, or was it just in that area that you were giving this presentation?
So we actually started in London and gave some talks there. Then went up to the Netherlands, over to Sweden, then down to Spain, throughout Italy and France, and then up to Romania. Then took a train through, like an overnight train that went through countries that didn't exist when I was a kid, and ended up in Budapest, and then continued on to Poland, and got to visit Auschwitz for the first time ever, which was very sobering and an important trip, and then came home.
Wow. So how long was the trip in total?
8 weeks.
Wow, what a great time. So did you leave in May or June?
We left in May and got back in the beginning of July.
Amazing. Dang, what an awesome trip. And so did you speak in every single one of those cities, or was it like you spoke in one city and then you were like, I'm going to travel here and then I'll speak in another city? How did that all work out?
So we did not speak in, so I travel with my partner, Matthew Renzi, who also, he speaks on AI and data science and machine learning. So either me or him was speaking in one of those cities everywhere we went.
Wow. Okay, that's the way to do it right there. So yeah, note to self and note for anybody out there, if you're planning on like a European trip and you want to get it covered, or at least a part of your expenses covered, become an awesome guest speaker, be an awesome speaker in general, and have people pay you to fly to their city and speak on really amazing topics. Note to self. So that's very cool. And so you mentioned that one of the things that you were speaking on was how to manage stress in potentially chaotic environments. Tell me more about that.
So I'm one of the founding employees of Evernote, which is productivity software that over 400 million people around the world use every day. And in building a startup like that, you have to learn how to manage your stress and your work-life balance. And while I was there, like going from 8 employees to 450 and all of the things that go with that, there's just no time to handle that. Like, I mean, people say work-life balance is something important as like an abstract concept, but you really don't know how to do it, and there's no time for it because you just have to keep feeding that machine. So a lot of the things that I speak about are the how do you work this into your life when you really don't, because I mean, it's okay to have somebody telling you all this stuff, but unless that person has been there and you can trust them, that they know where you're coming from, that they've been there themselves and they've failed at it, then you don't have a framework for how to get out of it.
I love it.
So that's what I speak on.
That's a really cool perspective. And one, I love the fact that, by the way, for any students that are just joining now, you have not missed anything. Heather and I are just casually talking before we get started at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are here and early, fantastic, amazing. You've got nothing to worry about. You've not missed anything. We're just casually talking about our summers. But that was really cool. I love that you talked about being openness to failure. I think so often you'll see like a lot of these books about like how I became a millionaire. And it's like, if you work hard enough and dream it, it'll happen. It's like, that's not how it works. I want to hear about the failures because that makes me feel like more of a human, and it's okay to be human. And it makes me realize that you're human too. And that I can achieve it because of my ability to relate to our respective downfalls instead of essentially the achievements. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I just, I've written a book that will be released probably within the next 6 months. It's it's in negotiation with which publisher right now. So if there's any beta readers out there that want to like help contribute to how this, how the book gets finished, I'm happy to send that out. If you want to give me some feedback and critiques on it. But basically I wrote a book about the early years of Evernote and the things leading up to that, and like our story, like our actual, like what we were feeling, what we were doing, what our lives were, and how that led to the decisions we made. Because in business books, all you see are the decision and the aftermath, and not like why that was the right decision for that company. Who were the people making those decisions? And unless you understand why that was the right decision for that company, then you're trying to apply that framework to your own company when it may not be the right one. So if you understand the motivation of why people did the thing they did and why that was successful for them, then you can start to understand why a thing might work for you if you tweak something. Like it's not follow this exactly. It's understand why this worked for them so that you can make that next connection of, well, if I do this, if I think through this way, then this will be successful for me.
I love that. It kind of follows the notion that Tony Robbins uses when he says success leaves clues. Where it's like, you don't necessarily have to follow the exact rubric, because just because fax machines in the 80s were just killing it doesn't mean that you should start a fax machines company in today. But, potentially what you ended up learning was that there was a rubric towards going about targeting that market, or how you built it out. I think it was reading in the book Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore, when he was talking about, I think he used the example of, I forgot the name of the company, but it like essentially helps store files back in the early 90s when people stored files, they stored it in filing cabinets. Remember those crazy relics? Essentially what they did was they targeted the organization that had the greatest pain point for needing to file online documents and easily retrievable documents, that being patent offices, because every day, especially for medical device offices, so medical device companies that needed to get patents approved, because they knew that every day that patent was like shelved, or that the product was not on the storefronts, making money, they were losing like $1 million a day or something. Mm-hmm. So the idea was finding like the biggest pain point they were able to work ahead and really drive their success forward. Mm-hmm. But it is 8 o'clock. It is that time to get started for our first workshop of the fall 2019 semester. My name is Garrett Mintz. We're bringing in our guest speaker, Heather Wilde. I'm so excited to have you all today. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion, and I'm extremely grateful to have you all here for this workshop. During this workshop, what we are going to cover is we're going to cover, one, how the program works. I'm going to talk about some of the key details that'll be coming up for the semester. Then I'll be telling you a little bit about my story, and then we'll jump into our guest speaker, Heather Wilde, and we'll talk about some strategies that you can use to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities. So to begin, I want to just give a brief overview of the program. I know you've received emails from Sydney and some communication from Sydney about what's going on with the program, but just to reiterate, I'm going to cover that right now. So there are 3 components to the program. There is the matching, there is the workshops, which is what we're in right now, and then there is the employer network. So when it comes to the matching, when we first got started in the mentorship, we facilitated matches based on career interests alone. So if you were to say, hey, my dream company is JP Morgan Chase, I want to be a financial analyst there, we'd say, okay, great, we'll find a JP Morgan Chase financial analyst. We put the match together. And one of the things that we ended up learning was that there wasn't a very high correlation between successful mentorship and just matching on career interest alone, which we were very surprised by, to say the least. So we partnered with some industrial organizational psychologists, and one thing that we learned was that when you align work orientation, which is how you view your work, so some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling, and to elaborate, someone who views their work as a job, their focus is on work-life balance. Someone whose focus is on career, their focus is on getting promoted and working up the ladder. And someone whose focus is on calling, their focus is very much on how does a personal and professional mission align. And by the way, it's a spectrum, so it can change based on the task that you're working on, your stage in life. But what we learned is that wherever you're at this moment in time, that is the baseline, that wherever you're at this moment in time, when you aligned work orientation between a student and a mentor match, the likelihood for successful mentorship skyrocketed. So that is a big component that we utilize when it comes to matching. So we'll look at work orientation alignment. Then we'll also look at career interests. We'll look at what degree that you're studying, what region you would like to work in, and where your mentor currently works, and then what school you go to. So those are the factors that we look at when it comes to matching you for mentorship. The second component is the workshop. So that's something that we're talking about, we're going to be going through tonight, and I'll explain that a little bit more in just a moment. But the final part of our program is the employer network. So there are companies that come to us and say, hey, we want to hire students because they've gone through this program. And one thing that we ended up doing was we looked back at our algorithm. We said, well, if aligning work orientation leads to increased success for mentorships and increased engagement from the relationship and increased longevity in that relationship, would this lead to increased engagement and retention in the workplace? And initial results indicate yes. So what we're working on doing is partnering with companies to align their company's cultures with your work orientation. So then it's an increased likelihood that you're going to get in there and you're going to feel like you're being surrounded by people that you can relate to, that you've got oxytocin with, that chemical in your brain that makes you feel like you're connected. So we're looking at an objective measure to help you identify which company culture is the right fit for you. It's a very new thing. It's something that we're just getting started with. So we're getting that off the ground, and there's no guarantee that we connect you with any companies in that network, but it's something that I wanted to mention because it is the third component of the program. So the workshops, before I explain that, I want to explain the mission of Ambition and Motion, really what our vision is. So for us, our vision is a world where the vast majority of people, not some people, not the select few, not a couple, but the vast majority of people wake up every single morning excited to go to work. When they're there, their expectations meet reality. When they come home, they feel fulfilled. That is our vision for the future. That is our vision for the world. And now we're not there yet, but our belief is that through this mentor program, through this Ambition and Motion program, that we can help get more people to the point where they feel like they're not just at a job, or they're not just at work where they're like not enjoying their work, but doing something that is meaningful and fulfilling to them. That is what we are all about. The culmination of mentorships, mentors helping you, your expectations meeting reality, as well as our algorithm that can ideally help you figure out how we can connect you with a culture that fits you best. Ideally will put you in the best position to thrive and succeed in your career. So that is what we are all about. So now I just want to briefly go over the timeline for the program. So workshop 1, that was last night, that's tonight, and that's tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our second workshop is on October 1st at 8 p.m., October 2nd at 9:30 p.m., and October 3rd at 8 p.m., all in Eastern Standard Time. Our third workshop's on October 20th, 21st, and 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our fourth and final workshop of this semester is on November 10th, 11th, and 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's all on YouTube Live, and all the links will be up on our website every single time we have a workshop. So our deliverable from this specific workshop is to teach somebody something that you learned during this workshop. So what I want you to be doing right now is I want you to be thinking a bit into the back of your head, what are the things that you're learning from this workshop? Write it down. Because what we know is that when you can teach somebody something, you are much more likely to retain that information. So if you're just sitting and you're thinking to yourself like, oh, that was really insightful, that was really interesting, but you're not actually thinking to yourself like, how can I teach this to somebody else? That's going to make it much less likely that you're going to be able to retain that information. So what we know is that when you teach somebody something, you're much more likely to retain it. So the deliverable is to teach it to somebody, teach something that you learn in this workshop to somebody that you know, take a picture with that person, then upload it to our website. Alternatively, if you'd like, you can also post it on LinkedIn and just tag us and just say, hey, this is what I learned from the workshop, and tag us. So one question you might be thinking, is this a requirement for completing the program? No, it is not. But why do this? Because it helps you make the most out of this program. I mean, if you're just sitting here thinking like, okay, I'm just going to attend the workshops and I'm just going to meet with my mentor the minimum amount of times, like I can't magically hand you an internship. That's not how the program works. It's about putting in the time to apply the skills that you're learning. And we know that when you do these things, you're much more likely to retain this information and have a better experience with the program. Plus, on top of that, we do use this data in terms of how active you are in the workshops and how active you are with the deliverables when it comes to the employer network. So if we know that you're someone that's actively doing things and it's, we've got a company that seems to be a really good fit between you and somebody that maybe is like less engaged in the program, we're going to go to you because you are way more engaged with the program. You're applying the skills that we're learning. You're submitting the deliverables online. Those are things that we keep track of. So it just is another reason why to do that. Another question we get is, when will you find out who your mentor is? You'll find that out on Wednesday, September 18th. You'll find that out on the dashboard on the Ambition in Motion website. So just go in the AIM, log in. You'll find your mentor on the tab on the left-hand side. I believe it's the third icon down. How do I connect with my mentor? So you're going to send them an email. So on the dashboard, there's a tips and templates tab. On that tips and templates, you'll have tips for what questions you should be asking your mentor and templates for literally copying and pasting an email to introduce yourself to your mentor. All this information is available to you. We've also got videos on the tips and templates tab that you can use to help you get your foot in the door with your mentor and just other professional opportunities as well. I strongly suggest that you look into that. If your mentor doesn't immediately respond, because your mentor is going to be an alumnus from your organization. If they don't immediately respond, send them a follow-up email. Leave them a voicemail. We'll give you their phone number and we'll give you their email, but it's up to you to initiate the conversation. So I just mentioned the tips and templates. When should you have your first mentor meeting by? You should have that first mentor meeting by October 10th. And I strongly suggest that you schedule that second call with your mentor during that first call with your mentor, just so that you can keep the ball rolling. You do not want to have to wait until November to schedule your 3 mentor calls, because it's going to be rushed. You're not nearly going to get the value out of the program. I mean, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I've got a really busy situation right now. Maybe I'll push it off. I can promise you your situation will probably not get any less busy later in the semester than it is right now. Make time for it. And it's not going to take that much time. It's a 30-minute call. It shouldn't take you much time at all, but you have to do it. You have to put yourself out there. You have to reach out. And just to clarify, successful completion of this program means that you attend our 4 live workshops, and then you meet with your mentor 3 times over the course of the semester. And then you complete our post-program assessment, which will be on the dashboard at the end of November, at the end of the semester. So how we track that information, when you post a comment in our workshop. So if you literally, when we ask you questions through the workshop and you answer them, that's how we're able to track that you're at the workshops. When you meet with your mentor, we track that because on the dashboard, there's going to be a little scheduler feature. You select the date that you're meeting with your mentor, and then the day after that, we'll send you and your mentor an automated email that says, hey, how was your meeting with your mentor or mentee, respectively? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or didn't happen. If it's a thumbs down or it didn't happen, we'll follow up to figure out. The one thing I really just want to mention is don't ghost your mentor. If something comes up in your schedule that makes you need to reschedule your meeting with your mentor, that's totally fine, but you need to let your mentor know. What you can't do is say, oh crap, I have an exam that came up out of nowhere. I have to move my mentor meeting. And then you don't tell them and you just don't show up. That's considered not successfully completing the program. I'll be very transparent about that. But if you say, hey, mentor, via text or via email, or via phone call, just whatever communication you use to get in touch with them, say, hey, something's come up. Can we move our meeting to a different time? That is totally professional. That is totally reasonable. You just have to give them advance notice. That's like the big thing. What's really not acceptable is just not showing up to your mentor meetings that you've scheduled. So that is the key components of the program. So this workshop will be roughly 50 minutes and then a final 10 minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions during the workshop, post them in the comment section. We will answer them at the very end. So my name is Garrett Mintz, and our guest speaker is Heather Wilde. Heather is awesome. She is a resident badass. Heather was the 8th employee of Evernote and is known as the Unicorn Whisperer. She's published games for Disney, the WWE, and Paramount. She trained Fortune 500 brands, advised hundreds of startups, and managed nonprofit programs for Alcon, Starbucks, Patagonia, and others. Heather has received commendations for her work in the US government, as well as awards for Mentor, Coach, Female Executive Entrepreneur, and CTO of the Year, and been named top writer on Quora. She writes for Forbes, Tech.co, and the Entrepreneurial Revolution column for Inc. magazine. I'm so excited to have Heather here for this workshop. But before we jump in, Heather, one last thing that I want to go over is I just want to give students just a brief little background on me and just like how I got into this. Because I mean, we're bringing in amazing speakers, but you might be thinking to yourself like, who the heck is this guy? And why am I in a position to, deliver this content to you? So I want to give you a background about me. So I started Ambition in Motion when I was a sophomore at Indiana University. But before that, what really motivated me to do this was I had gotten to a point where my social capital was so low that I decided that I needed to take action. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. I got 5 felony distribution charges and I was expelled from school. And that hit me like a rock. I mean, my life fell apart within days. And at that moment in time in my life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along the lines, you find yourself, like as if it were puberty, it would just come to you. And nobody that I had ever known that I thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. So I either had to accept being a failure or redefine my definition of success. Now, fortunately for me, I chose the latter. So about shortly after getting in trouble, shortly after getting expelled from school, I enrolled in a program in St. George, Utah to help me turn my life around. And this is where I first got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal and a professional level. On a personal level, mentors helped me come to grips with the decisions that I had made and just really how I had embarrassed so many people that I had known, my family, my friends, my university, my country. I mean, I didn't really realize how impactful my actions were and how many people that I had embarrassed or hurt because of this. I just kind of thought I was Superman, like I would never get in trouble, like I'd never get caught. And I just didn't have any remorse for my actions until I really came to grips with who I had actually impacted and how I had impacted them. And that was extremely impactful for me. The other thing was on a professional level, I had mentors that kind of said, hey, Garrett, if you're going to get professional opportunities, I mean, you have to wow people. You have to do something. You have to network like as if people can't do a background check on you. And so that's kind of one of my mantras is I want to help teach you how to network and build relationships like as if no one can do a background check on you. Because the moment they did a background check on me when I was 19 years old, the first thing they would see was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I was one of the 8. So it couldn't have had a worse background check. So I knew that if I were to get professional opportunities, I needed to wow people in the moment. So about a month after living in Utah, I was flying back to Chicago. That's where my family's from for the weekend to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. This guy's wearing jean shorts, a cutoff sleeve t-shirt. He's wearing sunglasses even on the airplane. He's got a goatee. On appearances alone, I thought he was a landscaper. But I decided to talk to him because I had nothing to lose. Why not talk to this guy? So we chatted and I shared with him a little bit about me. He shared with me a lot about him. And I just took the time to listen and take a genuine interest in what he had to say. By the time the plane landed, he said, oh, by the way, Garrett, I'm the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And he offered me an internship doing financial analysis on the spot. And that was such an eye opener because here's somebody that decided to take me under his wing and say, I'm going to stick my neck out for you because I believe in you. And that was so amazing because, I mean, it showed me that, shoot, if I can land opportunities as a freaking former drug dealer, anybody can land an opportunity. And that's really what I want to stress to you is as you're pursuing your professional path, if you have any objections or any things that are in your way, any roadblocks or anything like that, I want you to recognize that those most or more often than not are in your head. And recognize that if you believe in yourself, if you can honestly tell yourself a story for why you can and will achieve success and visualize it, it can be possible. I mean, shoot, if I could get an internship, a financial analysis internship, as a former drug dealer at 19 years old, you can also accomplish that dream job that you've got for yourself. So about a year after living in Utah, I got really lucky. I got re-enrolled at Indiana University. I had my felonies dropped to a misdemeanor conviction. I got accepted to the Kelley School of Business. And that shortly thereafter is when I started Ambition in Motion. And I started it because I had everything taken away from me and I was able to get everything back. And one thing that I started noticing was that my social capital was so low that I didn't care if I was a total failure, because I knew that there was something wrong in the higher education system as it pertained to getting jobs and getting careers. They're so focused on placement, but not focused at all about engagement or like how satisfied people were with their work. I mean, at the Kelley School of Business, they were rated the #1 career service office in the country, which is great in terms of placement. And I don't know how else they were measuring it, but so many of my friends were working at, prestigious accounting firms or investment banks or major marketing firms or major engineering firms. And that was awesome. But when I would talk to them about their work, they'd say things like, oh, just going to the grind, or like dreading Mondays. And I thought to myself, how could that be? How could the #1 career service office in the country have so many people that are miserable in their jobs? And that's where I set out with this vision and this mission to help people be excited about their work, to feel like their expectations meet reality. And when they come home, they feel fulfilled. So that is what Ambition in Motion is all about. That is what we are all about. That is what we are here to help you do, is get to a point in your life where you're doing something that you feel like, wow, I am doing something that's meaningful to me, that is compensating me in the way that I want to be compensated, and is allowing me to have the growth in my career that I really want to achieve. So Heather, one last point that I want to make before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this workshop, and that is how to get your foot in the door. And I just want to cover the 3 keys to success in this program. The 3 keys to success in this program are honing your strategy, your story, and your state. And I said that in reverse order. So your state is the most important component of success in this program. If you are not in a state conducive, by state, I mean literally physically, how are you? Like physically, what state are you in? Are you all groggy because it's Monday night and you had a long, rough day? Or maybe you had a crazy Sunday night, maybe you're hungover. Like if you are not in a state conducive for success, you will not be successful, plain and simple. If you come into your mentor meetings tired, exhausted, feeling like you got a bad hair day, if you're just telling yourself that like, man, I'm just not in a state conducive for being successful, you're not going to achieve the success that you want. But fortunately, you can do things with your body to get yourself in a state conducive for being successful, because your motions drive your emotions. So one thing you can do right now, and I want to challenge everybody to do this right now, is I want you to stand up and I want you to shake it out. I want you to let it loose. I want you to dance. I want you to just let it all out. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it loose. Because your state, by doing this, by letting your blood flow, you're releasing endorphins in your brain. You're getting your blood moving. You are much more likely to retain information. You are much more likely to be in a state conducive for being successful. This is something you should do before your mentor calls. These are something that you should do before going to an interview. This is something you should do before going to an AIM workshop, because when you do this, you'll be in a much better state, a much more conducive state for retaining information. The second part is your story. What is a story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story that, well, oh, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly make the most out of this mentor experience, or if you tell yourself like, oh, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, and I can't be great at in a mentor relationship because I can't focus when I'm around people. If you tell yourself that, then that is what you will manifest. I promise you, whatever goal you set for yourself when it comes to your life and your story and whatever you want to achieve for yourself, whatever goal you set for yourself, that is the max of what you can achieve and no higher. So my strong suggestion to you is to shoot higher, is to envision and literally visualize, prime yourself an outcome for success for every scenario you're going into, whether that be a mentor meeting, an interview, a professional scenario, maybe it's an internship. Envision what success looks like from that, and you will prime yourself for an outcome that you will want to occur. So your story is the story that you tell yourself for why you'll be successful. That priming, that visualization, those are things that professional athletes do all the time. So like when Michael Jordan is dribbling the ball down the court with like the final seconds remaining, and he hits that final 3-point shot, like bam, that wasn't the first time that he envisioned that circumstance. He replayed it in his mind thousands of times. He was prepared for that. And you can too when it comes to your business circumstances or your professional circumstances. Envision what success looks like, and you'll be much more likely to achieve a successful outcome. And the last part is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to use to go about getting the opportunities you want? This workshop's all about how to get your foot in the door for professional opportunities. So now I'm excited to turn it over to Heather so then she can share with you all a little bit about herself and a little bit about her story. I know I gave a little bit of an intro, but Heather, if you don't mind, I would love if you could just share a little bit more about yourself and just some of your background with the students so they can get an idea of more of an idea of who you are. Would that be all right?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I am Heather Wilde. I'm currently the CTO of Rocketeer, but most of you, if ever any of you, would know me as one of the founding members of a company called Evernote, which a lot of you may use to take your notes in college. And so we started that way back in 2007. We took it over from another company that had been working on it for about 5 years and stagnated without getting really far. Before that, I worked on some pretty big games. I worked on Pirates of the Caribbean multiplayer mobile with Disney. I worked on a Star Trek game, Star Trek Online, and I worked for WWE with Authority, which was the first WWE online game as well. And I've had a pretty varied career. My first job ever out of college was as a flight attendant for Spirit Airlines, which I'm sure as college students you're also very familiar with. Those $9 tickets are always great. And we all know the trick of just stuff as much as you can into a backpack and put it under the seat, right? So, yeah, so I've had a lot of different roles in my career, and now I'm a CTO and also an angel investor and an advisor to a lot of entrepreneurs. And I write books and columns, and I'm a speaker around the world.
That's amazing. So one question that I had for you was I wanted to learn about your very first professional job. So I mean, after Spirit, when you first got into your first major engineering job, how did you acquire that job? What did you do to get your foot in the door with that type of opportunity? How did you make that transition?
So interestingly, when I was in college, I was on a little show called Jeopardy. and so I actually was on College Jeopardy twice. They called me back after I was on the first time. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, my total was $25,000 that I won. That was back before the Ken Jennings years, where people win millions of dollars. So this was a lot of money at that point in time. And so I was on twice, and I got to know the people at Sony. I got to know the people at Paramount, and they were working on College Jeopardy online at the time and trying to translate, well, not just college, but just Jeopardy online, and trying to create that and Wheel of Fortune online and make it a community thing. So they thought that they actually thought it would be cool if I talked to them and the Sony online people about how, as a consultant of from the college person's point of view, what that would look like. So I started talking to them about that, and I got to know the one of the things in the prize pack that I got from Jeopardy was actually a lot of credits for a game called Cron X, which was this the first ever online multiplayer card game. And so I started playing that, and I thought it was really interesting, the game that they had created. And I introduced myself to the designers because it was owned by Sony at that point in time. And I introduced myself to the designers of that, and I was like, hey, is there anything I can do for you guys as well? I'm a college student. I was just on Jeopardy. I won your game. And so they were, I introduced myself to them while I was still in college, and they were like, yeah, we don't have any girls on the team. So we would love your perspective on this Magic the Gathering type thing. And so I just started talking to them through college. And I ended up helping them out as they needed a booth babe at gamer conventions, and I started doing that for them. And then they ended up offering me a job when I got out of college.
That's really cool. And when you were getting and you were working towards that moment with Sony, did you have any mentors that helped you out along the way as you were working towards this outcome and this, I guess, type of path?
Yeah. So the college that I was at was St. John's College in Annapolis, and it's a liberal arts school. It's a very classical education. They do, I mean classical. Like you start with Euclid and you learn in Greek. So it is like there at the time there were like 10 computers on campus. So, but whatever you are interested in there, like there is a professor that like will take as much one-on-one time with you as possible to help you. So there was a professor, Jim Bell, who was like, I will help you to get whatever you want, like wherever you want to be. So he helped place me at the Naval Research Labs in DC for an internship there, so that I was working on microprocessors for satellites, working with NASA. So that was getting me more skills that I wasn't getting at college. And then he also like helped, like he worked with another professor to like, he knew what I was going to need outside of what I was getting from school. And so like the professors together were like, okay, so here's your curriculum. Here's your extracurriculars that you're going to need based on the stated goal that you have. And I mean, 25 years or 20 years later, because my 20-year reunion is in 2 weeks, I'm still talking to Jim Bell. I'm still talking to Mr. Townsend about these things. They're still mentors in my career, although now they're colleagues. They're friends that have been in my life and monitoring me and helping me.
That's amazing. I love that. And so that actually brings me to a quick break. I want to ask the students that are watching this right now, I want to ask you all, what is your goal for your mentorship experience this upcoming semester? I think I would love to learn a little bit from you just about your intention for the program this upcoming semester, and how we can help you work towards that outcome. So write in the comment section, what is your goal for the mentor program this upcoming semester? So yeah, we'll take 30 seconds. Write it down in the comment section. So take a moment, someone jump in, share with us what your goal is for the mentor program this upcoming semester. What are the things that you want to work towards? Haley, your goal is to build a bigger network in the sports and entertainment industry to help lead to potential job. That's amazing. Abram, being more confident in the job search process. Mag, to make networking connections, and hopefully this can be a full-time job. Amazing. Mitchell, awesome. You'd love to get experience. Amazing. Nikos, considering a grad school because you may not be because you may be interested in teaching. That's amazing. But you're still figuring it out. Ben, you want to get an internship. Aaron, you want to land and find out how your first technical role that will help you get your foot in the door in the industry. Amazing, everybody. Fantastic. Drake, your goal is is job opportunities and professional relationship with your mentor. Samantha, networking. Ruby, great. Mark, amazing. Dominico, awesome. Robert, that's awesome. Fantastic. Ben, you want to learn how to best position your professional opportunities and hopefully lead you in the right direction for your first job. That's awesome. These are fantastic goals. Keep sharing them, people. Keep sharing them. That's fantastic. Worth, that's a great goal. Fantastic, everybody. So, Heather, one thing I wanted to ask you was, when it comes to getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities, is there potentially a wrong way about getting your foot in the door for professional opportunities?
I think the wrong way is to sit back and expect people to come to you. So just like I said before about how I got the jobs that I did right out of school, I mean, I was starting in college, and I mean, it was just the first thing I did was, I mean, I took an opportunity of being on Jeopardy to look carefully through the things that I got from them. And I mean, I like when I was on the set there, I was talking to the producers. I was talking to the guys behind the camera. I was talking, like, I took that opportunity that I had, which was amazing, and I jumped on it even more. Like, I didn't wait for somebody to call me like later. I made myself like, and I remember even like that day, somebody, like one of the gaffers was having trouble like moving stuff. So I stopped what I was doing and I like helped him like lug things around. Like when you, one of the things about an opportunity is that like you have to not only notice when you have one, you have to put yourself in the path of opportunities, and then you have to be able to jump on the one that you've gotten, and then you have to keep nurturing it as it comes. So it's like opportunities and luck are a 4-step process. And if you don't pay attention and you don't keep on top of it, and that doesn't mean keep emailing somebody every day and use boomerang to keep at the top of somebody's inbox. It means like actually nurture these relationships and offer something of value to people.
I love it. I love that perspective. One of the big things you brought up was not having expectations that people are just going to come to you. So I think that's something that's really crucial to point out, especially for the mentor program. If you're like coming into this thinking like, okay, hey, my mentor's just going to hand me an internship. That's not how this is going to work. I can promise you that. Now, don't get me wrong. Have students gotten jobs and internships through their mentor? Absolutely. But that's after nourishing and building that relationship and that rapport. And honestly, I think one of the craziest things is so often we'll find that, you know, like I said, when we make a match, we're matching on that work orientation. There are times that your mentor might not be in the exact field that you're in. That doesn't mean they're going to be a bad mentor for you. And in fact, more often than not, they're going to be someone that's got great insight for you because they've got a different perspective on getting your foot in the door. And maybe they've worked in that field before in their past, or maybe they know other people that have worked in that area. But if you close yourself off to that, I mean, that would be a really silly move. And I'll just say this right now. One of the biggest things about the mentor program is this is a warm professional. This isn't just any Joe Schmo that you're reaching out to at random. This is an alumnus from your organization that has said, hey, I want to mentor a student from my organization. So if you're someone who's thinking to yourself like, wow, you know, if you're thinking to yourself like, I don't know if the mentor is the right fit for me, it's like, meet with this person because this person wants to help you. They will do what it takes. They will do what they can to help you, but you have to still nurture that relationship. You have to provide something of value to them. And often you might think to yourself, especially as a young person, well, what do I have to bring in terms of like value? I believe that your ability to listen to them brings a lot of value. Just take the time to hear what they have to say. What do you think about that, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, listening to them is definitely important. I mean, a lot of times you'll hear from mentors that they want people that are coachable, that are teachable, and that they don't want to deal with anyone that's not, because it's just, what's the point of just going and talking to somebody that isn't going to respond to you? But for the people that are like, oh, well, I want to expand my network, I want to find a job, I want to find all this stuff. Of course, that's the ultimate goal for a lot of people. However, you have to see it from the other side, that if your mentor is going to advocate for you into their network, if they're going to help you to find a position, to place you into a place of responsibility, then they need to know you enough to trust you that they can advocate for you. So if you haven't put in the work to let them know you enough, to let them know how you work, who you are, and how you are going to be, that they can then go out on a limb for you and use their own reputation for that, then that's never going to happen. So if you're just like, I'm in a mentorship to get a job, then be prepared to pick up that box and work side by side with somebody moving the heavy stuff until they know you enough to do it.
That's a really good point. That's a really good perspective. I think one of the things that you talked about was letting them get to know you really, or just get to know you on a more deeper and more interpersonal level. One thing that I advocate strongly for is vulnerability and authenticity and just sharing your story, because I know, obviously I shared with you all that, I'm someone that was a drug dealer, and this is now where I'm at today. I do that because I want to empower people, one, to believe that if they make a mistake, that's okay, it's not the end of the world, but two, that this is me. Like, I'm coming at you from my unique base of experiences based on what I've had to go through and what I've now done, to kind of say, like, this is something that you can achieve. This is something that is possible, but this is also me. And that vulnerability makes it easier for me to connect with people, because once I shared with them, typically they're way more comfortable with sharing with me and trying to want to help me succeed, because people love to learn a story. They love to learn that vulnerability moments, that moments where you're like, I don't necessarily know if I know the solution to this problem, but I'm going for it. What do you think about that, Heather?
Absolutely. I mean, you want to have that sounding board, and you want to have that person that you can trust to, like, just be able to talk to you about anything. And if you can't trust to open up about the things that are, I mean, if you can't trust this person to be there for you, and like at your worst, at your scariest, at your like when you're the most stressed, when you're whatever, then it's not going to work, because a mentor should be able to be there for you when uh, when you are having a terrible time, not just see the best times of you. This because you should also be able to handle when they're not able to give you the best of themselves. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, so that's amazing. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. One thing I hear often is, especially for students that have really strong grades, maybe they've done everything that they're supposed to do, like, in college, maybe they got some internships, some leadership positions. Well, that's all nice and stuff. But what I want to ask you is, what are some other things that you can do to help you get your foot in the door for professional opportunities? Like, is grades enough just to get that first job? And even if you do get that first job, is it just okay to say I've got a job, or should we be looking for something more when it comes to that first career that we're looking for? What are your thoughts on that?
So that's a tough one, because I can tell you that from the hiring perspective, I've gotten plenty of resumes from people that I've discounted that only have academic experience, because I don't want somebody that only has theoretical knowledge of a job. So, and if you're a student and you've never done any internships, um, and you're trying to apply for a job, I mean, you could have a like greater than 4.0 and a PhD, and yet have never worked a day in your life, and I will never hire you, because, like, one, you're going to think that you know everything about a topic, and two, all of the people that have been working for those 16 years that you were working on your PhD will know the practical things that you don't, and you're going to try and boss them around because you have a PhD and they don't. So, so I mean, you need to have a balance between education and practical skills. So I mean, you could have, like, I don't care what your grade point average was. I don't. I care, can you do the job? And so that's why things like, if you're as a CTO, I do skills assessments with things like Codility, and peer programming tests. And I hate whiteboard stuff, so I don't do any of that. But I mean, I purely want to know, can you do the job that I am hiring you for? And if you can, then I want to know, are you a personality fit for the team? Like, do you have skills? I mean, do you have a personality that's going to mesh with the people that are already there? I don't want automatons, but I want to know, like, are you guys going to get into fights every day, or are you going to get along? And if that works, then awesome. And it has nothing to do with grades.
I love that. I love the person. Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, and I'm not alone in this. Like, if you ask, like, a bunch of hiring managers in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really, really good perspective. I think one thing that maybe some students are thinking of when they hear that is because obviously you're coming from the hiring perspective of like, okay, are you a culture fit for our company? As a student, how can I assess whether or not this company is a culture fit for me?
So that's pretty easy. One, you can check out Glassdoor, and you can see the reviews of a company from the people that work there. And you can see like, okay, so the positive reviews and the negative reviews. Like, so when people are leaving negative reviews of a company, they're generally talking about the things about a company that they don't like. I find that very valuable because sometimes the negative reviews will be like, wait a second, so this person doesn't like, I mean, they're giving it a 2-star because there's dogs in the office. Well, I would like a company that has dogs in the office. Or they're giving it a 2-star because they don't have sushi Wednesdays or something. Okay, I'm totally fine with the fact that they don't have sushi Wednesdays. So like, look at the things that people are complaining about, not the things that people are happy about, and then you can see the kind of culture. And also, Glassdoor is great because you can also see like the kind of things that they do for the hiring interviews. And that gives you an idea as well of what kind of culture they have.
I love that. That's a really, I think one of the biggest nuggets that I want to take out of what you just said was it's not about the aggregate score of like how many people complained and versus how many people gave praise to a company. It's about what were they complaining about? Because just because one person's a fit and a great cultural fit at Google doesn't mean they're going to be an amazing cultural fit at JP Morgan Chase. And those cultures are totally different. So I think that's a great resource to leverage and use. That's awesome. And then another thing that kind of is on this topic is if, let's say I'm a student, I had an internship between my junior and senior year, it was okay. It wasn't amazing. I wasn't super thrilled about it, but it was okay. And then I got a full-time job offer at the end of the summer. And I'm kind of in the scenario where like, do I take it? Or like, you know, what if I don't take it and no one gives me a job? Will anybody ever love me? Like the whole like where will I be, and you know, if I don't take this, will anybody ever give me an offer? What is your opinion about that? What are your thoughts on that?
So when I was in college, I ended up taking a job at it was a debt collection agency, and it was like, I am not the type of person that should be collecting debts from people. I mean, I was excellent at doing it. I managed to come up with a way to nicely ask people to send us the money that they owed. And somehow I actually ended up, for the time I worked there, to be the top grossing debt collector. And it was mostly because like I figured out the psychology of how to not freak out people, not make them feel nagged, and just do that. But so they offered me, because I was like so good at it, they offered me a full-time job, like an extension of my contract and all of that, and a bonus and everything. And I was just like, no, I can't make profit off of like people's pain. This is not something I want to do long term. And I don't care that this is going to be like that I'm going to make a lot of money doing it and that I'm good at it. It's not something I want to continue to do. So I think like you have to evaluate if a job is a fit for you. And I didn't have another job lined up after that. But I found one that was a fit very soon after. And I ended up going to work for Kodak at their digital imaging department. And that was a way better fit for me. I had so much fun like teaching people how to use their digital cameras and like take pictures of like the best parts of their lives. And that was great. That was a much better fit for me. It didn't pay as much, but I was happier. So yeah. It's a personal thing.
Yeah, and good for you for when you recognize that it wasn't the fit for you, that you decided, hey, I'm going to take a step out. I may not know what my next step's going to be, but I know it's not going to be here. And yeah. I think that's important for students to recognize that you're young. You've got a lot of time to figure it out. And if you know something is not the right fit for you, don't continue to step in that direction. Like the safety and security, this is not the Great Depression anymore. Like you can pursue options. You can put yourself out there. It's not just about having any job that'll pay you. It's about finding the thing that you can be fulfilled by, and be in that constant search for whatever that is. But with that said, I would imagine that there might have been some nerves and anxiety. I know Abby Aquino, she had a question of what advice do you have with dealing with the nerves and potential anxiety of the whole mentor or interview process?
So one of the things that I like to do is be as prepared as possible before going into an interview. And there are books online that you can get that have tons of interview questions that people have been asked in the past. And if you're nervous about something like public speaking, like talking to people, if you think you're going to say and like be picking at your fingers and just not think of anything, then you can get a couple of them. And I know for a fact that most hiring managers use these books to come up with the questions that they're going to ask you. So some of you have probably heard weird questions like, what would you do if a penguin is in a sombrero came into the room right now? Or how many gas stations are there in the entire United States? Like, these questions come from those books. So if you get them and you go through and you practice answering them yourself, you come up with some answers and you just do a couple a day, and don't memorize your answers. Just use them to start thinking through what your answers would be and say them out loud, talk to yourself in the mirror, get used to it. Then you'll get confident at the interview process. And it's also good public speaking skills. Another thing you can do is record yourself on your computer, like talk to yourself as if you're talking to someone else, and then play it back and see what you like and don't like about it.
I love that. That's a really good idea. That's a really good perspective. I think for preparing yourself, so I know, Heather, one thing that you and I have talked about was a lot of like Tony Robbins stuff, but like priming yourself for successful outcomes. Even if you like walk yourself through, like even like a voice recording or whatever, what a successful outcome could be from this scenario and this circumstance, that could be huge because then you can visualize it. I spoke with a woman who was a professional musician, and she said that the thing she did to help her prepare for any musical performance that she ever did was when she would go to bed, she'd close her eyes and she'd visualize what the successful outcome would look like, what her performing that musical instrument, what it would go like. And what she ended up telling me was that the moment that she could go to sleep and that she wasn't nervous about exactly what was going on, and that when she would think about what that performance would look like, it just kind of knocked her out because she was already ready and prepared for it. That was the moment when she lost all the nerves and all the anxiety around that. And I think that as a student, or as any person that's going into an interview or meeting with a stranger for a networking opportunity, or meeting with a mentor, or just any scenario that you might be in, I think that's something you could do, of visualizing how that scenario could go and what the best possible outcome could be. And the point where you're not nervous about that, when you're just like about to go to sleep, that's a moment where you kind of overcome those nerves. Mm-hmm. So another question we got was from Robert Purcell. He's asked, do you have an opinion on on-campus research experience as opposed to internships with the company?
I think that either one is worthwhile. So, and it depends on what you are doing. But for example, I am on the board at UNLV here in Las Vegas, which is the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And we do a lot of internships on campus and research opportunities with Tesla and SpaceX. So, because like those are things that they can't do at their own company. They need a lab like we have here, and we also do things like we have an anechoic chamber on campus, and there's other facilities that are only available on campus at like for research that you wouldn't get experience at if you're in a company itself. So depending on what you're doing, like if you're an aerospace engineer, if you are like in water tech, if you're like biomedical, that kind of thing, like, so you may end up going to someplace like Dow for your internship, and that's great. But if you're just software, then going to a company is good.
That's a great answer. I love that. That's really cool. One question I had back, and by the way, we're at 8:50. So students, if you have any questions, please post them here. I'm going to ask just a couple questions as you post your own questions. But one question that I wanted to ask you, especially as it pertained to getting your foot in the door for professional opportunities, Heather, was, is it okay to ask for introductions, whether that be from your professors or from your mentor or from family, friends, or anybody you may know? Is it okay to ask for introductions?
Yes, it's okay to ask for introductions. Again, keep in mind that people aren't going to give you introductions unless they already have your trust, and unless there is a specific ask that you have. So it's kind of like if you ask somebody for help and just leave it there and it's too general, then they don't know how to help you. But if you say, I need help with building a volcano for a science project, then they'll be able to think, oh, I know somebody that's really good with chemistry. I can introduce you to. Then and really loves making paper mache. So like if you're very specific with your ask, then people are more likely to be able to and want to help you.
Yeah. And that, that's interesting, because then that kind of leads to my next question is, maybe you ask for an introduction because of whatever career interest you have, but then what if your career interests change? What if things with your personal world or your professional world, you get into an experience, you're like thinking to yourself, this is my dream job. And then you get into this dream job and it's like, not my dream job anymore. Do I sound like a phony if I go back to my mentor or my support group and say, hey, I think I need to make a change. Can you help me?
No, that's absolutely wonderful. It's great if you try something on and it doesn't fit, because now you know that doesn't work for you. Better to find that out early. I mean, like I'm 42 years old, and a lot of my friends now are starting to change their careers, and they're going back to school, or they're just like becoming entrepreneurs now, and they're loving that. And now that we're all like, we have the possibility of living more than 100 years. So how many times in our lives are we going to get to change our careers? It's pretty awesome that we're going to be able to learn so many things. So no, it's totally acceptable to try something on, see if it's good, maybe even do it for 20, 30 years and then completely change your mind. Think about your parents. Your parents probably did something all their lives and have done something different in retirement.
Yeah, and you're probably right. And speaking of parents, I think there's a couple things that I want to bring up here. One, I'm not a big fan of, if you're choosing your career path because your parents think it's a pragmatic career and it's got some security and these 401ks are set up for you in your future. And I'm not to say don't save for retirement, you absolutely should, but like it's about your experience, and if you're happy with what you're doing, like that's the part that your parents are going to care about. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, so my future sister-in-law actually, she really wanted to go into singing. So she went to school for a career in she went to a theater school for singing and dancing and all of that, and hurt her back through that. But she also got a double degree in business. So that was like the trade-off that she had. She's like, well, hey, mom and dad, I want to do this. This is my career. I really love it. And they're like, okay, as long as you get a degree in business as well. And it turns out that that's what she needed.
Yeah, well, and that's cool. And I think the other big point, like even on that, was even if like you end up realizing like business is not what you want to do, the decision you make as an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old for what degree you're going to pursue does not define what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Like
I know a lot of archaeology degree people that are UX designers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, yeah, it's the point is that just because you made a decision as a young person to say this is my degree path doesn't mean that you're wed to that degree path for the rest of your life. If you end up realizing like, wow, I'm pursuing a degree in mechanical engineering, but I don't know if I want to go into mechanical engineering, is it okay to try to pursue a job outside of that? Go for it.
Absolutely. Although I must say that mechanical engineering is probably one of the most useful skills that we're going to need going into the future. So please, please become mechanical engineers.
Okay, that's a quick plug there. That's good. Worth had a question. He said, "What if I want to change my culture fit? Is that something I can develop into myself and change who I'm happy to work with?"
Yes, you can. Although I kind of, so this is difficult. You are going to grow and change, and you're gonna, like, the person that you are, the motivations that you have, the behavioral patterns that you have created, they're pretty set. And it generally takes like major life changes to like getting married, having kids, deaths in the family, that kind of thing, to change who you are as a person. So who you are, in that kind of way, in the kind of way that when we're talking about like your culture fit, is not something that is easily changed. It can be, but if you are somebody that is a 9 to 5er that like wants to be home and have your own time, and have like set weeks that you're off per year so that you know you can have vacation, and like have that security and safety and all that, then you are not a person for a startup. And you cannot, no matter what you do, you're not going to be happy there. Like, so that's the kind of thing that like you're just going to be miserable, and you need to understand that when you're thinking about your career. Like somebody like that will be so happy working for a bank or the government or something like that. And it doesn't matter what role you're in. Like you could be a developer working for the government and be thrilled because you're 9 to 5, you get your 3 weeks off per year, your check comes in every week like clockwork, it's all good. But if you're like a maverick kind of risk taker, I love to be up at midnight and talk to people in India all the time, then like you're totally entrepreneurial. You will hate working for a bank. So that's what we mean by culture fit.
Yeah. And I think, to maybe even apply some of the research we've done on work orientation with like that triangle of like job, career, calling. Yeah, I mean, ultimately what we've observed is that you will kind of form to align yourself with the people that you work with. But if it's not inherently who you are, you're not going to enjoy it. So for example, if you're someone that thinks to him or herself, like, man, I really want to be working for a company that's like, really changing the world and really creating like a positive impact, and you feel like you're in a company culture where maybe there's like sexist work practices or that it's a toxic environment, like you will adapt yourself to that culture because that's just the game. The longer you stay in it, that's the kind of game that you're playing. But you will be dissatisfied. You'll feel bad about yourself because you'll know you've so deviated from who you actually are. And on a flip side, you can compare it to a company where it's like, if everybody's, hey, we're 9 to 5, we hit that 40-hour week and we are out. And you're someone that's like, let's say, very career motivated, you're not going to be like that. You're going to say, I want to work up the ladder. I want to get promoted. I'm hungry. And if that's the case, that's great. But that company is probably not the right fit for you, because if you see that you're not getting promotions based on how much hard work that you're putting in, you're going to leave. Or you're going to just do the 40 hours, but you're going to be really unhappy because you'll be like, man, I could do so much more. And I want to see so much more for myself. So I think that there's a lot of like internal conflict that, especially when it comes to cultural alignment, knowing the people that you're around, like how do they view their work? Is it similar to the way that you view your work? If not, I mean, you will become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but you know who you are. And if it's not who you are, you're not going to be happy.
Exactly.
Another question was from Leah. She asked, what are your thoughts on having a resume full of work experience, but not having internship experience? I feel it causes me to be overlooked.
Like, no, that's perfect. And I think the more customer service style experience, the better. I love hiring people that worked at McDonald's. I loved hiring people that were babysitters. Put that all on your resume too. Like if you think it was innocuous or stupid or something, like I'm looking for all of that kind of thing. Because I want to know that you can handle stress. I want to know that you know how to handle people. Like coming from somebody that was a flight attendant, I'm looking for those kinds of people skills whenever I'm hiring, even developers, because you need to be able to handle when things go wrong. And somebody that has worked food service front of line knows how to handle when people are at their worst.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Ben had a question. If I want to pursue a job in a different area, how do I market myself to be competitive for a job in a field different to what I have studied?
Look at the job requirements and apply your skills to the job rec. So if you have, if a job is asking for marketing skills, if they're asking for certain development skills, as long as you have the skill in that, make sure that you're writing your cover letter to explain why your thing that you did, say you were a catering manager for the military, and you're applying for a job as a marketing manager for a hotel. You can be like, well, so I had to run events and promotions and all of this stuff, and now I can run events and promotions and all of this stuff. So one was food and one is online marketing, but it's basically the same thing, and managing people and creating these things. So just you take the skills and you paint the picture for them of why your skills apply.
Okay, we got two more questions that I want to ask. JR asked the question, what kind of questions should we be asking during interviews? So JR, one thing that we actually have on the AIM website under the tips and templates, we literally have a list of questions that we suggest that you ask when you meet with your mentor. We've got a list of questions that you ask, we suggest that you ask when you have conversations with professionals you've never met before, but that are in your field of interest that you want to learn more information about that field. We have that on our website, but Heather, if you've got any suggestions, what are your thoughts on that?
You should when people are asking you at the end of an interview, do you have any other questions for me? Always, always, always ask at least one thing. Because if you don't, then they're going to think you're not curious, and that you're not interested. So just ask something, and it doesn't matter what, just ask something. I mean, it can be like, so what made you decide to work for this company? And that's one that I always like to get asked. So if the person hadn't covered that before, another one is, what's your favorite thing about the company that you work for? Or you can say, what is your, if there was anything about this company that you could change, what would you do? So make sure that you ask a personal question of your interviewer.
Love that. That's a great point. Gets to know them on a personal level. And then the final question is from Catherine. She asks, I've been in my professional career for many years, and I'm thinking about a career change after I finish completing my EMBA. What suggestions do you have? So I think essentially the question is, after she gets this graduate degree, she's contemplating a career change. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on that, Heather?
So making a career change is, it just depends on what she's been doing before, and which she didn't actually say. But I would say follow whatever is interesting. Because I mean, if you've already had a professional career that's been relatively successful, you already know what you're good at, and you should already know relatively how to market yourself for those things. And then with an EMBA, you now have even more marketing skills. So you can then, you're very valuable to an employer, because they don't have, a lot of companies don't have people that have an MBA and the management skills to go with it. A lot of people will graduate as an MBA and then expect to be hired, and like I said before, they don't have any management experience, or maybe 1 or 2 years. And while that may fly at some companies, being able to come in and say, well, I have 10 years of professional experience, and that's it's very helpful. So you really can say like, well, what industry am I interested in, and just go after it.
Well, that is awesome. That's a great answer. Well, Heather, thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm so excited I'm so glad that we could have you at this workshop tonight. I'm very grateful that you were here. Students, I'm grateful that you all can make it tonight for this workshop. Remember, your deliverable from this evening is, what is something that you learned? Teach it to somebody. Take a picture with that person, upload it onto our website for your workshop deliverable. Alternatively, you can also post on LinkedIn something that you learned and just tag us. That's also a way that we'll give you credit for that too. But thank you all for being here this evening. I'm so excited for our next steps with the program. You will find out who your mentor is on Wednesday. Heather, are there any things that students should be looking out for from you that are new in your world, or that you're working towards, that if they want to stay in touch with you or they want to get involved with you? Or is there any ways for students to find out more about what's going on in your world?
I have just written my latest book, which is currently in the process of being published right now. It's called Birth of a Unicorn. So as I mentioned before, if anyone wants to be a beta reader of that and help to influence the final version of the book, they can contact me at Heather Wilde, and I'll put that in the comments here as to how to spell that. Also, in January, I'm doing a conference in Antarctica. So that's in between school semesters from January 5th to 21, so if anyone is interested in taking a cruise to Antarctica and can get their parents to pay for it, then they're welcome to join me and some amazing other technology speakers and leadership people on a cruise to Antarctica. So that's those are my two main things coming up.
Or if you're just casually hanging out in Antarctica and you just want to stop by, like, that's chill.
Yeah.
That was
literally chill.
That's literally chill. Yeah, I snuck that one in there. All right. Well, hey, everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight. Heather, thank you so much for being here tonight. This was awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for this next workshop. By the way, if anybody wants to watch this workshop again, the same link that you got to watch this now, you can use that again. The recording will be live on YouTube. If you want to watch the workshop from last night, same thing. The YouTube link YouTube link is still good from last night. You can rewatch it. And same with our workshops tomorrow night as well. You can come to multiple workshops. That is totally all right. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.